All right. Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. That was Jeff Sherman along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And Dr. Lopkin, two big noteworthy events in the news this week, and that it's the jobs numbers and some of the media controversy. But let's first focus in on the jobs numbers and what does that mean? We know what it means economically. Well, let's talk about what does it mean economically. With the Obama administration, there was a huge pool of basically non-participation in the labor movement. That's actually starting to ebb, isn't it?
Well, it's starting to ebb, but you're also seeing more people go into that as we're seeing the baby boomers retire. So
yes.
We still have this large pool of people who they're not going into the job market, primarily because of retirement. That's actually putting pressure on jobs because now we're almost reaching the point where there are more jobs than there are people to fill them.
And it's really interesting because, believe it or not, God, time flies. Oh, my God. 20 years ago, almost, read some books, Tom Peters and others, about the coming freight train, which would be the huge shortage of labor, obviously with the economic upheavals that almost became comical. But now, really what you're saying is that it's not so comical, that we're in actually like a labor crunch. Doesn't that open up opportunities for traditionally underemployed or unemployed people, maybe older people, maybe younger, maybe not completely on the dime with skills? What do you think of that?
Well, it opens up opportunities, but the problem is that most of these jobs require very specific skill sets. So if people don't have those skills, they're still going to find a hard time getting into these jobs.
What kind of skills are we talking about, Dr. Lopkin?
A lot of them require programming, computers, highly technical manufacturing skills.
Okay, that's why I asked that kind of rhetorically. To me, I'm thinking, does it make the case against college? Because it seems like to me, you'd comment on what the world does not need is another marketing manager. Am I correct?
No, the world does not need more marketing people. In fact,
yes, exactly.
For the manufacturing jobs that are out there, and these are good paying jobs, we're talking $60,000 to $70,000 a year. There are training programs for these at community colleges. So
that's my whole point. No, is this whole 4-year degree, art history, studying, why the medieval times were brutal, yada, yada, yada. It's really nice to become, nice little intellectuals, but what does that really get? What have you done for me lately? I mean, what does that really get people? Isn't maybe a better path? Maybe, things do change in terms of viability. Maybe, obviously, college degrees, there are certain areas where it's more than viable, but maybe the quickest path to success is not of the 4-year degree.
No, it really isn't. I mean, the 2-year associate's degree is becoming more and more valuable. But if you take a look at the most successful companies in America, they were not started by college graduates. They were started by dropouts. And I mean, take a look at Facebook, at Apple, at Microsoft.
Yes, no question about that. Yes. So what does it really tell you about the value?
Yeah, no, the perceived value is still high. The actual value is much less so. Your art history degree, your literature degree, your history degree, these are pretty much worthless.
Okay, but people still continue to vie for them. I mean, isn't it even incumbent upon colleges to kind of say, yeah, we'll let you in. We're not going to stop you from coming in, but we just want to warn you, there's really no real viable opportunities for you.
Well, colleges are a business like any other, even though many of them are operated as nonprofits. Their whole thing is still getting people in. So they don't really care what the students learn as long as their tuition checks clear.
Yes, I think so. I think we've actually seen that in our lifetimes, that college, even before our time, let's say in the 60s and before then, was something only a certain caliber of person, of student got into. It was really for those people that are really college material. That's completely out the window. In fact, in colleges now, it's really the new high school. They have special educations, program. I mean, this is college. I mean, you'd shake your head at that.
Oh, yeah. University of California, which used to be a very good school system, yes, recently found that because so many of their students were failing remedial math and remedial science, they got rid of that requirement. So rather than actually teach them these things, they just got rid of the requirement for graduation, and they're letting in people who cannot pass these classes.
Yeah, but in the end of this discussion, in terms of this segment, doesn't that really, water down? In other words, 50 years ago, a college degree really meant something. I mean, you could get a degree in art history, and just the fact of having a college degree was huge. I think that's completely out the door, correct?
It is. The degree itself doesn't mean anything. It's what you know and what skills you actually bring to a job.
And last question about degrees. Obviously, Harvard, obviously has, some pull in it. But has it gotten to the point that even some of these, let's say, the is there really that much difference between where you went anymore? Is that really that big of a deal as it used to be?
Well, there's still a difference because the Ivy League schools, Harvard, Yale, Cornell, more than the education, what they always brought was the network, the connections. Those connections and that network is still valuable.
I would agree. Good point. Now, moving ahead, we have some media controversies. First with Roseanne Barr, I think, and then Samantha Bee. Let's take Roseanne Barr. Pretty off the hook comments. Let's just be honest. I don't care if you're on some kind of medication, whatever excuse was. No excuse for that, correct?
No, there was no excuse for her saying it. Even on Ambien at 2 a.m, whatever her excuse was, this is not a comment you make publicly.
No, but wait a second. As an adult, I don't know how old she is. I'm sure she's past 50. That's an excuse for a high school kid. Okay. You are responsible, like it or not. I don't care if you're on medication, if you had a couple beers. If you say something as an adult, you're responsible, correct?
Absolutely.
It's like drunk driving and you ran into a building. You can't tell the policeman, well, I was drunk. It's not my fault. Obviously it is, maybe more than ever. So,
right.
Media outrage, she lost her. Go ahead.
I think the best comment on it came from the Ambien people who actually responded saying that racism is not a side effect of our drug.
No, I thought that was pretty witty, actually. Then you had Samantha Bee called the First Lady the C word. There's a long diatribe.
Not the First Lady, Donald Trump's daughter.
I'm sorry, my fault. Yeah, the daughter, the C word. Then there's Keith Olbermann, who's I think is unhinged. He's been unhinged for years, actually. These rants against Trump and against his supporters, calling them Nazis. You can go down the list, no sense, belaboring the point. Kind of almost a rhetorical question. Is there a double standard?
Oh, there's absolutely a double standard. In fact, Gayle King on CBS this morning stated flat out, could you imagine if somebody had said this about one of Obama's daughters? It would have been complete
they would be
outrage.
Put in jail. Out of control. It would be racy. The list would be endless. The airtime. Now, before I let you go, and we conclude this Carnivore Bite's certainly been a good one. What do you think in terms of, we talk about the double standard and the media. Did you see the latest information on CNN's ratings? They are just I mean, there's local radio shows that have a bigger audience. I mean, their biggest audience is like 800,000.
Yeah, they've been falling off a cliff. The simple fact is they decided, instead of going for the middle of the road, which was, a path they were on during the Obama administration. And
it was one we talked about before that I thought that was a winning strategy. It's all about, niche marketing. MSNBC had the left. Fox has the right. You don't. And how do these people, Zucker, whatever his name is, how do they get promoted? The guy's an idiot. It's simple marketing. They're trying to go uber left. They should have been the arbitrator of fair news. They would have been cashing it in if they did that.
Absolutely. But instead, they decided to, take a sharp left, and they're paying the price in terms of ratings. Because let's face it, middle America does not want to hear that.
No, and also, even if you were a hard leftist, I mean, how much can you take of whatever her name is, Stormy Daniels? I mean, come on, it gets tiresome.
Historically, sharp left programming does not do as well as sharp right. So
yeah, a la Air America, remember that?
Exactly.
Like 20 years ago? Yeah, it died.
So to take your entire network and do that, they just threw a lot of their audience away.
Well, very much, food for thought. That concludes another edition of Carnivore Bites. Thank you, Dr. Lopkin, and we'll be reconvening next week to see what's in the news. I'm sure it won't disappoint us.
Absolutely. See you then.
Yes.
You've been listening to Carnivore Radio's podcast. You can catch us here every week. Carnivore Radio is part of the Xvadio podcast network. You can listen to the podcast at blogtalkradio.com/Xvadio. If you want to be part of the conversation, you can listen to us live every Friday at 4 o'clock on WESU 88.1 Middletown, Connecticut. You can also catch us online at wesufm.org. We look forward to hearing from you, and see you next week.